Ben Mingay, congratulations. You're here for Sweeney Todd for the Sydney season. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Very much looking forward to, giving Sydney audiences a bit of a fright.
Yeah. Definitely a fright. Can you tell me more about Sweeney Todd?
Well, Sweeney Todd is the story of the demon Barber of Fleet Street, which, he had a beautiful life in London. Then he got sent away because this mean judge wanted to take his wife and daughter. So he got sent to Australia to, break rocks, and managed to escape 15 years later and came back and hell-bent on revenge. So, good old story of revenge.
Were you aware of the musical before you were cast?
I was aware of it, but I didn't. I actually had never really listened to any of it or seen it. First time I did it was probably 5 years ago now, and when Stuart called me up and said, how about Sweeney? I had always been told that I'd be a great Sweeney, but I'd never actually listened to it. So down the rabbit hole I went of Sweeney Todd and fell in love with it.
Because you're playing the main title, Sweeney Todd, or Benjamin
Barker.
Mm.
Yeah, it's great. Like it's a great character. It's actually my favourite role to date. So yeah, I've been really having some fun with Antoinette in the room in particular, because we've done it now 3 times together. So it's fantastic. It's such a great show. It's great music. It's a great story, and the cast we've got here are fantastic.
Tell me more about the fact that it's a musical that's a thriller. Now, I've seen you on stage in different productions. In particular, I know you can go to dark places because I remember seeing you on the stage for Officer and a Gentleman, and there's a scene in particular that I seen you crack, and it was amazing. And I remember telling you the next time I saw you. So where did you have to go in researching this character?
Well, I think, for me, I always like to do a backstory on a character, even if it's not kind of written or out there. With Sweeney, the way I prepared when I first sort of did it 5 years ago, I read through the script, and then I tried to read up on different literature that was talking about Sweeney and about the story, about the character. There's a really good documentary with Stephen Sondheim talking through the show, so you really get where he was trying to go with it. And then I took that, and then I sat down over, it was just one night, I sat down, I wrote 11 or 12 pages of backstory, Sweeney, where he was born and what sort of family life he had, and then how he became the barber, and it just helps you set up the character and the relationships and how he would react in certain situations. And I think for the darker stuff, I went back to the concentration camp, the prison camp in Australia, and kind of imagine what it would be like for him coming from this beautiful life in London. And of course, during that time while he was there, the Industrial Revolution, all that sort of stuff. So he came back to this dingy, horrible London. And I think, that backstory really helps in that, and that torment and turmoil that he went through, and then brought that back with him. So it helps to do that backstory. And I did the same with Officer and Gentleman. Backstory for Zach, that character as well. Mind you, I have more clothes on in this show, which, is good or bad. So yeah, that's the main thing. I think it's that gives you that sort of motivation and tools to go into that place if you do a good backstory. It doesn't have to be true, but as long as it works.
Well, they say it's not based on a real thing, but what I liked in particular, I'm not sure if you came across this in your research, but Banjo Patterson actually did a verse on a barber that actually slit someone's throat. I love that idea of that parallel.
Yeah, well, I think I think there's a lot of things that kind of relate to Sweeney Todd, and I think what makes Sweeney particularly interesting and a beautiful piece is the fact that Stephen Sondheim wrote it. He's a great storyteller, but he's a musical genius, and I think if you when I first learnt this role, it was the hardest role I've ever had to learn, because within one phrase, the key signature will change, the time signature will change. It's madness. So you when you actually nail that, it just really brings the music out. And I always think back to, this is my childhood, when I found a guitar in the corner that used to be Mum's guitar that somebody gave her. And I used to sort of tinkle around on it and whatnot. And then I decided to write some music when I was 12. And it was such simple, 3-chord, Oasis type boring stuff. And I actually recorded on an 8-track recorder.
Awesome.
And I listened back to it later on in life and went, oh my God, how simple like my writing was. And then you parallel that to someone like Sondheim. And it just goes to show you how much that adds to, the whole story and the characters and everything else when you've got someone like Sondheim writing it. It's great.
I know, he was like 23 and he already had 3 shows on Broadway.
Madness. It is madness. And it is such a loss that, he passed away. I think, Antoinette and I, when we were doing the show the second time in Adelaide, we were really hoping that he might be able to come over and see us, but just a little bit too late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the idea when you're talking about madness. Now, the scene opens where he sort of comes off the boat, but then when Mrs. Lovett gives him the razor, so do you think he hops off as Benjamin, and do you think he actually turns into Sweeney when he gets given the razors, or vice versa? Well,
I think he hops off as Sweeney because he is changed. Like that whole sort of trauma that he went through in the prison camp, I think that definitely changed him. And there is this scene where he comes in from the cold into the pie shop and has that that first scene with Mrs. Lovett, and he kind of breaks down when she's telling him about what happened to his wife and daughter, and there's that line in there where she goes, it is you, Benjamin Barker, and I just flip out and say, it's not Barker, it's Todd now, it's Sweeney Todd. And that's a real, that moment of kind of saying, well, Benjamin Barker's well and truly gone, and this Sweeney Todd is what's in place now.
Do you think the time signatures and the change actually helps with the character and the madness?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, it's very hard to learn. Like I was cursing Sondheim when I first learnt it, but it's fantastic. Like when it's right, it's amazing. And I think with music, like anything, I think it's always like it's good to kind of shock the listener or the audience, and I think this piece just does that all along. Like there's so many things that you'll kind of, when you first hear it, you'll be like, oh, is that right? But it is, and then you kind of, at the end of the piece, it's just all, it is harmonious in the end, but it's quite complex. So yeah, it makes it very interesting.
It's waiting for yesterday, humming the rain, waiting in years, hearing the music that nobody hears. Sweeney is in the parlor, Sweeney's on the open spot. No one can help, nothing can hide you. Isn't that Sweeney there beside you? Sweeney wishes the world our way. Sweeney's waiting for yesterday, humming the rain,
I also saw you in Shrek. You played Shrek in Shrek the musical. Now that was a couple of hours of prosthetics and costume. And I remember talking to you about what comes first and how you get into character. Have you noticed that with this role in particular, what comes first and how you get into character?
Well, I remember when I did Jersey Boys many years ago now at the Theatre Royal, and I remember we had these beautiful tailored suits, and they were just beautiful suits. And I remember when we were talking with the director and the creators and everybody, and they were kind of saying how don't overthink the preparation of getting into character. You'll find that when you get in the suit and you kind of look at yourself in the mirror all suave and all, you are the character. And I found that really worked, especially with Jersey Boys. And with Shrek, it was the same thing, but even more so because you're looking in the mirror at this huge green ogre. So for me, that process of 3 hours in makeup was basically just thinking about Shrek and sort of trying to just calm before the storm, because that was quite a full-on show. And with Sweeney in particular as well, because it's got this really cool sort of smoky eye, this dark thing and the scar. And I think once that's all on, and the thing in Sweeney for me is the gloves. Like the gloves are just that sort of final thing, and I put them on, and then it's like, all right, I'm Sweeney. This is it. And I just find I'm in there. Yeah.
is how the little ogre came to live on a swamp with a beautiful princess.
And his best friend.
And his best friend.
And a gingerbread man. And a very handsome puppet.
And a Pied Piper.
And an ugly duckling. And a witch.
And a crust to some more.
And sing bass. What makes us special? What makes us special?
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd.
He served the dark and a hungry god.
He served the dark and a hungry god.
To seek revenge may lead to hell.
Everyone does it if seldom is well. A Sweeney Todd.
I have to ask, you were on Frayed. Is season 3 going to come?
Well, that's what everybody seems to be asking. I know that Sarah Kendall has written it or is writing it, so I'm pretty sure it'll happen, but I just don't know when. I think it's one of those things where, you know, she's ready to go with this whole other story. And the beauty about Frayed is, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be in chronological order. Like, you know, we flash back quite a bit in season 2, and I know talking to Sarah when we were filming season 2, she said that, you know, it could even, you know, jump forward or jump further back, but forward would be better because we're all a bit older now. So yeah, I reckon something will happen. I just don't know when.
I mean, Sharon Stone even tweeted it. Are you going to get her on board?
Well, that was you know, I got a call from Sarah Kendall. This was last year or earlier on the year, and she just said, I had to call you and let you know I've just had a 2.5 hour meeting with Sharon Stone and the producers from over here, because Sharon was like, it's the best show I've ever seen. I love it and I want to be part of it. And she did actually say that her storyline, she wanted to have something to do with good old Jim.
Yes.
So the little boy in me went, oh my God, Sharon Stone, Basic Instinct. Yes. But yeah, we'll see. She was talking a lot about wigs, so who knows where she wanted to go with it.
Both to know that nothing is going to change.
But Dad's dead.
That has changed. I had everything in London. I had the kind of money that would make you sick.
There's no money left. You are bankrupt.
My children and I have nowhere to go.
But what about your family? Are they in Australia?
Hello, Mum. If you are going to stay with me, Samantha, I will not put up with your lying.
Why did you call her Samantha?
Because that's her real name.
You are unbelievable. You went away for 20 years and left me alone.
Do you ever tell the truth? You've lied about your name, where you grew up, even your Uncle Jim.
All right, I will not lie. I swear this to you.
You loved Dad, didn't you?
Well, everyone hates me. My brother, my kids.
You can't make me go to school here.
Yes, I can!
I want to go home.
Me too, I hate this fucking shithole.
Hey, do not use language like that. No, look, we're not staying here, all right? I'm doing everything in my power to get us out of this fucking shithole. Let's all have a great day. You've been gone for 20 years without a word. What's going on? I'm trying to live my life.
Bev, come out and talk to me.
I'm going to go and get a job.
What?
So, ringing about the job that you've advertised, what sort of background would you be wanting for a consultant radiologist? So that's an actual radiologist. No, I thought it might be someone who consults the radiologist. No, I don't know what I'm talking about either. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, bye.
What do you think is going to be the final moment when you come to Sydney?
The final moment?
Well, you've travelled around. This show's been going since 2015, off and on with COVID, and you've been playing in, is it Adelaide and Perth?
Yeah, so we started in Perth, WA.
Yeah.
And then we did Adelaide, and yeah, Sydney's going to be great. I think, you know, when we were doing it there, and you know, we'd post some stuff on social media or there'd be press about it. Everybody from Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane were like, well, when are we going to get a turn? So I think this is great, and I know that, you know, you always know that you're onto something special when you know, other shows I've done in the past. Generally, you kind of, you know, you have a few people, friends and family or whoever, or acquaintances or randoms on Facebook, sort of going, oh, I would love to come and see the show. How do I get tickets and da da da? But this one, just everybody I speak to, like even my accountant was talking to the other day, is like, I booked Sweeney Todd tickets, like so everyone's on board. They all don't want to miss out.
And of course, you're a Newcastle boy, so hopefully everyone from Newcastle is going to come down and see you.
Yeah, they're already booked. They're booked, like some of the shows are half booked with my Newcastle friends and family, which is great.
So do you have a process of rehearsals? What do you learn first? Do you learn the script in particular, or do you try and do your research?
Well, I think I don't like to obviously like to be familiar with the script and the music before I go in, but I also find that until you get in the room with the director and your other castmates, you kind of want to leave it a little bit free so that you can create something in the room. It's like when you sort of get offered a role and you prep for it, I always avoid watching archivals of other shows or other people doing these characters, because I'd rather create it off the page and my own interpretation, and then Stuart will tell me if it's wrong. So yeah, that's the way to go.
And do you have a favourite song out of this musical?
I do like a lot of them, but in particular I like My Friends, like that first moment when he's singing about his razors. And I suppose the ballad, like the opening ballad, it's so powerful. Like I'll never forget every show. I'm behind these, sliding doors, huge sliding doors, and I'm just behind there, just ready to go, and I can hear the orchestra belting out the tune, and then all the cast are on stage singing, and then it just ramps up, and then on this and the doors open and there's smoke and the lights and out I pop. It's an amazing feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
My friend, my faithful friend, speak to me, friend, whisper, I'll listen. I know, you've been locked out of sight all these years, like me, my friend. Well, I've come home to find you waiting. Oh, and we're together, and we'll do wonders, won't we?
Oh, look, I'm really excited to see this show, but I'm really excited that you did all this backstory. Anything else you want to share that we may want to see, little nuggets or Easter eggs that you might want to pull through the show?
Well, I think the most interesting thing that I find in the show, in particular with, is the relationship between Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney. I think if you really sort of follow that, pay attention to that, there's just so much complexity to that relationship. There's constant shift of power between the two of them. And I think it's just so much more interesting than just having, a bad guy and a bad girl or whatever. And I think that I always, and I know Antoinette does as well, we always try and find the redeeming qualities of each character so that, you kind of love and hate them. It's not just all bad guys yelling and screaming and cutting throats.
Do you think Benjamin would have actually been with Lovett had he not been Sweeney?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think they come together because of this, situation. Mrs. Lovett is the ultimate, manipulator.
Yeah.
So she's an entrepreneur. She sees a business opportunity, and I think, in Sweeney's heart, I don't think he would ever have done anything like this. It's just the madness that he's turned into this monster because of his revenge and his pain.
Is there any redeeming features to Sweeney?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely what I aim for. I think, you've got to try and help the audience understand where he comes from. It's, and why he's doing what he does. And I think, it's easy to play a bad guy by just, somebody told me years ago when I did a workshop with John Mildren, it was, and at Fox Studios there. And I'd never had any acting coaching or anything like this. And I remember he said to me, I will never forget the two things he said to me was, always look for the organic truth in a piece, which I've always, just strived for. And the other thing he said was, you know, try and play against these, you know, stereotypical, you know, facets of a character. Like, for instance, if you're playing an angry, you know, monster or whatever, don't just scream and yell. And there is a bit of screaming and yelling in this, but there's also a lot of quiet. And I think that's the thing I like to kind of focus on, is just making the character three-dimensional with good and bad qualities. And then, you know.
There's a lot of power in stillness, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the key. I think, you know, a lot of people try and overcompensate for that on stage and particularly on screen. But I think if you've got the character, you're in that body, then stillness is definitely key. I mean, obviously, if you want to hit the dress circle, you've got to do some bigger gestures, but yeah, it's definitely the way to go.
Thank you so much, Ben. Ben Mingay starring as Sweeney Todd in the Sydney season of Sweeney Todd at the Opera House. I can't wait to see it.
Can't wait to see you there.
Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. Attend the tale of Sweeney Todd. He served a dark and a hungry God. He served a dark and a hungry God. To seek revenge will lead to hell. Well, everyone does it if seldom as well as Sweeney Todd. The demon lover feats.
Nice to be in orbit.